Hey guys, Paul here from Meldrum Performance Coaching, podcast, videocast, books, etc. More and more. So today I want to talk about energy system demands and activities, sports, movements. So I was having a conversation today about a particular grappling sport, and the person told me that if you wanted to improve, or suggested to me, if you want to improve your fitness for the grappling sport, to just do more of said grappling sport. And to a degree, this is absolutely true because the sport that you were doing will train the energy demands of that sport. It's pretty common sense there. However, there are a few issues with that logic that we can really dive into. So the first thing with that is we need to look at the limiting factors. So one of the best things that any PT can do, any coach can work out what each individual client's limiting factor is for whatever goal they're trying to achieve. And this is universally applicable. So if you're working with a powerlifter and you're looking at their squat, what's their limiting factor? What's stopping them from producing more force? Deadlift, same thing. For an Olympic lifter, same thing. Basketball player, same thing. What's their limiting factor? What's holding them back to become a better player? And what we can do is we can identify that and we can work it out. So when we're looking at cardiovascular and conditioning, energy system development for a grappling sport, the limiting factor quickly becomes apparent that it's a skill of your opponents, a skill of yourself, and also the environment that you're working in. So if you're doing light drills where you're just going over arm bars or something like a basic drill and just drilling that and getting the technique really down point, are you going to be challenging your cardiovascular and energetic systems to the highest amount of demand? Absolutely not. When you're rolling and when you're actually grappling and doing practice, if you're much better technically than someone who is not that good at the sport or activity, are you going to be doing a cardiovascular training session to the highest amount of capacity for you? No, absolutely not. Flipwise, if you're grappling someone who's a lot better than you and they're technically superior, their technical superiority is going to limit the ability that you have to get a cardiovascular workout. So what we need to do is look at, okay, cool, what's the energy system we need to train and how can we train it outside the constraints of our activity, because the activity itself limits the ability to do more of it. This is across the board for field sports as well, for track sports, same kind of thing, but not as much. So with that, say for basketball, which is my sport, if my basketball games, the conditioning required, yes, the first time you play full court basketball, it's a different type of feel because you've got to deal with having 9 other people on the court, the agility required, the adrenaline, all that other kind of stuff all happens. But after a period of time, as the game starts to slow down, your conditioning, the game won't provide the same type of conditioning response. The second thing that we need to look at with that particular concept is not just the actual cardiovascular demands, it's more the other demands of the sport as well. So the joint demands, the soft tissue demands, all that kind of stuff is going to have a massive impact on what is going on. So if you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for example, what's going to happen is if you keep on doing the sport as your main form of conditioning for that sport, you will get overuse injuries, you will get sore joints, and then what will happen is you'll limit the ability to do that sport more and more. There is a point of diminishing returns for any activity. This is not just picking on BJJ if it sounds like that, because it's absolutely not what I'm interested in doing. But for any sport, the actual demands the sport places on your body will make a big difference. So we need to be aware of that. We need to be cognizant of that, of what people are doing. So we need to be on top of that. The third thing with that as well is we need to then also program specifically for those demands. So we can look at, with the sport, what ATP PC specifics does it have? What anaerobic capacities do you need to be trained? And then also, how does the aerobic system fit into place? And one piece of advice, we're not going to go into it too long in this podcast episode. This is more like a thought process and a way to discuss this with your clients, is our aerobic system really underpins everything that we do. So if we don't have a well-developed aerobic system, our ability to regenerate ATP goes down drastically. The more we build up an aerobic base using low-intensity cardiovascular training, low-intensity steady state, and low duration intervals where we learn to bring our heart rate down, the better off our performance is going to be. One thing that I will talk about in a future podcast is how conditioning is a skill and how you can actually develop the skill of bringing your heart rate down between intervals to effectively become fitter for the demands of the activity that you're looking to do. So guys, that's a quick little discussion on why the activity cannot be the way you develop conditioning for the activity. Of course, it's part of it, but you need to do some other stuff. This is really useful when you're dealing with someone who's competing in a particular activity as a selling point to get it across to them. And from there, you can start working with some athletes in a limited capacity as you start to build more experience. Thanks heaps, guys. Speak soon.